Well, good morning. Welcome to Pyjama Preaching for Monday, the 22nd of February. February's nearly gone. Speed of it all. And we're back to Mark's Gospel. I hope you enjoyed and got something out of last week's reflection on that beautiful song. John Bell, just a brilliant composer, and yeah, just great. Anyway, today, chapter 14, verses 1 and 2. The Feast of Passover, one of the main celebrations in the Jewish religious calendar, was just days away. And the chief priests and the law teachers were still racking their brains for a way to have Jesus arrested and killed. "We'll wait for the feast to end," they said, "or there'll be a riot." Barclay calls this the last act begins. The last crowded act of Jesus' life was now about to open. The Feast of the Passover and the Feast of the Unleavened Bread were two really different things. The Passover fell on the 14th of April, the 14th Nisan. And the Feast of the Unleavened Bread consisted of 7 days following the Passover. So the Passover itself was a major feast and was kept like a Sabbath. And the Feast of Unleavened Bread was called a minor festival. And although no new work could be begun during it, such work was necessary for public interest or to provide against private loss. That was allowable. So the really great day was the Passover day. Doesn't this all have undertones to our lockdown and things we can do, things we can't do? Gosh. So the Passover, as I say, was one of 3 compulsory feasts. The others were the Feast of Pentecost and the Feast of the Tabernacles. But the Passover had a double significance. First, historically, it commemorated the deliverance of the children of Israel from their bondage in Egypt. And secondly, it had an agricultural significance. It marked the gathering in of the barley harvest. On that day, a sheaf of barley had to be waved before the Lord, in accordance with Leviticus 23, verses 10 to 11. And not till after that had been done could the barley of the new crop be sold in the shops, or bread made with the new flour to be eaten. So every possible preparation was made for the Passover, and a month beforehand, its meaning was expounded in the synagogue and its lessons were taught daily in the schools. So there was an idea that nobody would be ignorant and unprepared for the feast. The roads were all put in order, the bridges repaired. One special thing was done. It was very common to bury people beside the road. Now, if any pilgrims had touched one of these wayside tombs, they would technically be in contact with a dead body and so rendered unclean and unable to take part in the feast. So before the Passover, all the wayside tombs were whitewashed so that they would stand out and pilgrims could avoid them. Such planning. Such planning. And Josephus gives us an idea of how many pilgrims actually came into Jerusalem. He tells that Cestius, the governor of Palestine around AD 65, had some difficulty in persuading Nero of the great importance of the Jewish religion. To impress him, he asked the then high priest to take a census of the lambs slain at the Passover in 1 year. The number, according to Josephus, was 256,500. The law was that there would be a minimum party of 10 people to 1 lamb. So get your maths head on. That will mean there's close to 3 million pilgrims in Jerusalem. And it was then that the problems would appear, because during Passover, feelings ran very high. The remembrance of the old deliverance from Egypt made people long for a new deliverance from Rome. So, these were crowds stirred up with their own nationalism, their own desire to get rid of the Romans. And so this last act of Jesus' life was to be played out in a city crammed with Jews who had come from the ends of the earth. They'd come to commemorate the event whereby Their nation was delivered from slavery in Egypt long ago. And it was at that very time that God's deliverer of all humanity was going to be crucified upon his cross. And so as we now move into the period of Lent, we think of all that Christ did on that cross for us. We know the whole story. But Lord, just encourage us during Lent to reflect about Christ on the cross and his victory over sin for us. Amen.